Hello, welcome to the Joyful and Rising podcast. My name is Hillary Ramos. If you are new to this space, like I said, my name is Hillary. I'm a wife, a mom, a writer, and a creator. I have 2 children here on earth, and one of my children, Marcelly, is celebrating her 2nd Christmas in heaven this year. It's that time of year, friends. The season that is supposed to be bright and full of cheer. The so-called most wonderful time of the year. And while there is so much to be grateful for, it's also true that many of us are carrying a heavy load of grief during the holidays. And when our grief intersects with those expectations of this season, it can leave us feeling disoriented and alone. That is exactly why I sat down with my dear friend, Alexandra Craig, to discuss how we can find hope in the holiday season, even while we are grieving. Alexandra is a mom, an author, and a content creator who has spent the last several years dedicating her precious time to sharing with both grace and honesty what it's like to live with hope after tremendous loss. At just 29, Alexandra became a widow after her husband, John, endured a 9-month battle with cancer and went to be with the Lord. Our conversation was so meaningful that what we intended to be an hour-long conversation stretched late into the evening. We talked about the realities of grief, the unexpected ways that hope can show up even in the hard seasons, and what it means to honor both joy and sorrow during the holidays. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Alexandra about finding hope and light during the holidays, even in the midst of loss. I hope it is a conversation that blesses you as much as it blessed me. Well, hello, my sweet friend. How are you?
Hello, I'm happy as a clam.
Good.
I don't know who came up with that phrase, but as happy as clams are, that's me.
I am very happy to see you. I know that we've been talking about doing something to just like some sort of collaboration, or I've been thinking about doing some sort of collaboration for a while. And it was funny when I messaged you and I said, would you want to come do the podcast thing? I actually wasn't even anticipating that you were like, yeah, let's do it like next week. And I was like, oh, yay, I'm so excited.
It's an appropriate time to talk about this kind of stuff because a lot of people just kind of shy away from the topic.
Yes.
And bringing light to it is exactly how we, make people feel less alienated in it.
I agree with you. I think that the fact that we were able to do this now was helpful because I started thinking about it and I was like, I wanted to do an episode about grief during the holidays. And I was like, I don't know that I want to tackle this by myself. Do I want to pull Josh in because we've done some stuff together before? And I was like, no, this is perfect. I'll have Alexandra come on. It'll be a nice balance of perspectives, I think, because both of us have experienced profound loss in different ways, but profound loss. And we've both navigated at this point multiple holiday seasons, you more so than myself, in the after of that loss. So I'm very pleased that we'll be able to have what I think will be a good conversation. But I would love for you to introduce yourself for a second. Just tell us a little bit about you and your journey, if you don't mind.
Of course I will. But before I do that, Lord, put a guard on my mouth for anything that you would not have me say and open the floodgates of what you would have us say today. Lord, I pray that you would be with us in our time here with Hillary. And I ask for your favor upon their lives and the sweet Ramos family life, and that you would bless every listener here today now. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So my name is Alexandra Hope Craig. I'd say that because that's how you found me. But Alexandra, I'm 36 years old, and at 29, I became a solo widowed mother. My son was 4 and some change at the time. He is 11 now, and we live in South Carolina, the Charlotte, North Carolina area, but in South Carolina with Johnny, our dog Elroy, and our cat Archie, who have the latter 2 have joined the family in the last 2 years. So,
sweet.
Yep. So I share my story as I'm living through it, and the journey still goes on of going through the process that led to becoming, widowed. And that's not what I am. I don't wear that title like that's the
Mm.
label for the rest of my life. It's part of my journey, it's part of my experience. I am still widowed. I'm not yet remarried, but it's learning, as I call it, learning to love forward post devastating loss. So that's what I share with those who happen to come across me. And that can look like what life looks like from day to day. It can look like things the Lord has shown me along the way. It can be just things that have been helpful and just learning to live again.
When, I don't know that I've ever asked you this, when did you start sharing your journey? But I was like embedded in it all. I was already posting about our life and all that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody just kind of saw all of that happen in real time. When
Mm-hmm.
did you start sharing some of your journey through grief and loss?
Well, for me, John had gotten sick in 2018,
Okay.
before TikTok, before the world shut
Right.
down. And but we had been documenting our story on a Facebook page, a family Facebook page. And
Okay.
that was actually, we had started it for almost like a vlog purpose in 2016, but we just never got that far.
Mm.
And it's all right, but we had it there. And so when he things first started happening in 2018, in January of that year, and we quickly realized that it was going to be an interesting situation. And there were a lot of updates, and we wanted to update family and friends and get people on the same page. It was exhausting to do
Oh,
it
yeah.
individually. I'm
Mhm.
sure you understand
I
from in a
do.
different way, but it is exhausting to let people know what's going on. So we decided to start posting updates. At first, it was, maybe something was recorded, edited, clipped and
Mhm.
posted, but that got exhausting. So we resorted to lives, Facebook Lives. So thus began the journey of we were the Candid Craigs. That's what it was at the time.
I love
And so that was how we started sharing.
that.
And I continued a little bit after, in the same fashion. And then when TikTok became a thing, I didn't come right out with my experience. And part of that, of course, you just kind of hop right into it. Since my experience, like the marathon began in 2018, as you know, with preconceived notions about grief, people think that there's a certain box that needs to fit in, and that
Mhm.
after a certain amount of time passes, then it's no longer appropriate to talk about things. Or
Mm.
if you're still talking about something even years later, then either one, you're trying to drum up fresh sympathy, or two, you're still wallowing and you're stuck in it. All these different things that people have to say. And so I didn't just come right out with it. But then as you approach seasons, even just a shift in the air or the fragrance of a pumpkin spice latte, these things that just the olfactory senses bring memories
Yeah.
to the forefront of your mind, and it puts you in like a reflective headspace. And so one day I decided to share, like, you know what, I'm going to let people understand a little bit more of my background, and just to show this is what we went through. And a lot of people didn't understand different parts of our lives that happened to be on camera, but it was for the purpose of getting people to think,
Mm.
what would you do if?
Mm.
How would you handle this if suddenly your life went from being fine to not fine, a distinctive before and after
Mm.
experience? So that's how it began. And then here we are.
I was trying to think back. I don't remember when exactly I've been following you for a long time, and I know that we connected because I actually had a few friends that recommended your page before I even found out I was pregnant with Marcelly.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes.
well,
And
that's
it was
very kind of you.
right. And it was because of just similarities with, I think, content around like faith discussions. And
Mm-hmm.
they were like, I feel like you and Alexandra would get along. I feel like y'all like would vibe. And
Mm-hmm.
so
I feel like they were right.
I feel like they were right. So I originally started following you then, and it was probably back in early like 2020, 2021. And then we didn't find out that I was even pregnant with Marcelly until October of 2021, and then found out about her complications in February. And I tell people this a lot, that there were just little things that like, and I don't know, you probably have had your own experiences with this, where I have noticed more now the little ways that God was like preparing my heart for this journey along the way in very even small things, like big things, but small things too. And the people that he connected me with, including you and many other people, were some of those small things because, like you said, a lot of your content was about like, just thinking about those different perspectives. And I don't
Mhm.
think if those seeds hadn't been planted
Mhm.
in multiple ways, that I would have navigated that journey the same way. So that is a good, I want to encourage you that that is a good fruit that that you have done and one that has touched me very much.
And thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate
Oh, you're
that.
welcome.
That it's very encouraging to keep on going because sometimes it's you wonder like who gives two hoots what I have to say.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like who gives two hoots? The algorithm sure doesn't sometimes,
Exactly.
but it's not all about that. It's always worth it for the one, and I appreciate your kind words.
I like what you mentioned about the memories. What, and that kind of brought you out into talking about this. What was the first holiday that you guys navigated after John's loss? Do you remember?
I do. So John had passed away on October 20th of 2018. And so of course, I mean Halloween, but that was like kind of a non-sentimental thing for us. It was Thanksgiving was the
Mm,
first one, and my parents came down, and that was the usual. They would come down from Pennsylvania, and we would prepare Thanksgiving dinner. And John's family would come here. His mother was living at the time too, and so she was more of a pillar, and in-laws would come. So, and I was pretty okay
mhm,
for the most part. Part of that is, the happy distractions of things going on and having mom and dad here. But when it really hit me first for the holidays, which I was sitting opposite where I am right now, this seat, this is where John usually would have sat.
mhm.
And I had finally sat down after preparing the meal with my mom all day, everybody sitting around, and I was just sitting across the table and the empty chair. Or what would have been the
Mm,
empty chair. Somebody was sitting there, but realizing just a year ago, none of this was even a thought of a
yeah.
possibility. I mean, we just 9 months, the whole thing began. It was 3 days shy of 9 months from the date that we found out anything was even wrong to the date that he took his last breath. It was
Wow.
3 days shy of 9 months. So, but by the same token, while it was a horrific 9 months, just about, it also gave us the luxury of acceptance, to like kind of a gradual
Hmm. Hmm.
acceptance. And I tell many people, and you would probably, I'm sure you can understand in a different way, you can lose the same person in your life, like the same role in your life, but in a different way. I mean, every grief has its own fingerprint. Everybody has them. Everybody has a fingerprint, but no two are the same. It's the same thing. Me having lost my husband in the way that we did through a 9 month battle with an aggressive cancer is different than losing your spouse to a sudden freak accident.
Yeah.
Or, so
Everybody has those different experiences. And even with people who have navigated that anticipatory grief, you said, you guys had 9 months. Like, you have 9 months of processing that, like, this is what's happening. But
mhm,
you still, it's totally different when it actually does happen,
mhm,
right? And then that's even different from the sudden loss. It's the same thing with like us when we were navigating our stuff with Marcelly. Like we knew from birth that we had borrowed time. I mean,
mhm,
we were not guaranteed a moment like with
mhm,
her. And even in situations where other families have walked through that, it's we still experience it differently and we still have
mhm,
our, own triggers and our own things that bring us joy or bring us comfort, things
mhm,
that in the after we've navigated well versus have struggled with. It has been that's been one thing that's been really interesting in the grief process has been learning from other people and like learning
mhm.
to just have grace
Yeah.
for the way that people grieve differently in their experiences. I remember that our first holiday after Marcelly was ironically Easter. And that was so I it didn't that didn't hit me when you were talking about it didn't hit you until you like you sat down at the table. The
Mhm.
irony of that didn't really hit me until like that week. Like
Yeah.
we were walking through that week and I went, it's Easter. Like, okay. I mean, I'm so grateful that it's Easter. And like,
Mhm.
your holiday was Thanksgiving. You're like, I'm so grateful, but I'm like wrecked also
Yeah.
with grief because obviously I'm so grateful that she's there with him and she's there with him because of everything that was done for us on the cross. But like, I wish she was here.
Yeah.
And that's so hard to hold space for that. Like, how did you struggle and like with Thanksgiving and Christmas figuring out how to hold space for both of those things, the grief and that joy?
For both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a learning experience where, well, you realize that two truths can exist at the same time.
Mm.
You can be you can be grieving and you can be sad for what you no longer have, but you can also be thankful and have joy in your heart for what the Lord is doing in your life. And you can still be saddened and burdened by the heartbreak
Mm.
and know that the Lord is working in the midst of it and be thankful for the testimony that he's writing through it. Well, sometimes messages, particularly ones that are intended to encourage the body of Christ through your testimony, it ends up on a very colorful side of the internet.
Yes.
And by colorful, I mean like you've got people hurling all kinds of types of things your way. And one of the common threads is calling you crazy
Mm-hmm.
for how on earth can you look at something horrendous and somehow equate that with joy?
Right.
How would a good, loving, faithful father allow this to happen? How can you still have any amount of joy in your heart after that?
Oh yeah.
And of course, it's because two things can be true at the same time.
Mm.
I mean, that's the very thing that happened with Jesus, even coming into a broken world and then dying a horrific sinner's death that was reserved for the worst of the criminals.
Right.
That was heinously painful and not at all cutesy like the little wall art and decor we adorn our homes with. The
Mm-hmm.
cross was not cute. So he was able to have immense grief for what he was fully taking on
Mm-hmm.
and the insane amounts of pain that he was enduring, but then still have hope because he knew what it was accomplishing. In our humanness, we might do it kicking and screaming,
Yeah.
and you have that ache in your heart for the life that you once had and the yearning for it, but then also learn to have some form of a hopeful expectation of what the Lord is doing in it, what joy there is still yet to be had. Now, with Christmas, it was, well, I mean, you had sent me in your notes, Emmanuel, God with us.
Mhm.
That took on a whole new meaning for me. It was
Oh
like, oh
yeah.
my
Same.
gosh, I understand that a whole lot better now.
Mm-hmm.
God with us. He's with us in our suffering. He sees us in it. Knowing he's present, just simply just with us in it
Yeah.
was a great comfort. And it sets a great example for how we should be with others without trying to rush people through the process.
Yeah, no, totally. And we can
Mm-hmm.
like we could go down like a whole podcast episode on that.
Mm-hmm.
I
How about
agree.
you?
Same. It was, and I still, because we're only, this is our like second big holiday season without Marsley, and it's interesting because the last one it was just really foggy for
Mm-hmm.
good reasons. I was freshly postpartum. So Brielle, our youngest, I was 8 weeks pregnant with her when Marcelly died. And that in and of itself was
Mm-hmm.
like, walking through that pregnancy after her passing was like the definition for me of the joy and the grief because we were
Mm-hmm.
just constantly like, I'm so excited for this baby, but also I want my other baby here. So she was born, Brielle was born November the 1st. And my birthday, Liam's birthday are in November. You've got Thanksgiving in November. So we had Brielle was born, and then we had Liam's birthday, and then we had my birthday, and then we had Thanksgiving, and then we had Christmas. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm freshly postpartum and nursing and doing all of the things. And I felt like I was just so foggy with the
Mm-hmm.
grief on top of it too, that I don't remember much of last
Mm-hmm.
Christmas. And I hate that, but I don't, I remember good things. I don't remember being bogged down in my grief. I think as much as I was expecting to feel. but I feel it heavier this year. And I think
Mm,
it's because I have a clarity in my
mm,
mind that I didn't have last year. But then there's also, I feel the joy more fully. That's been a
mm,
weird experience. It's been very strange to literally have one moment where I'm like looking at Marcelly's ornament on a Christmas tree and being sad that she's not here. And then I
mm,
have another moment 30 seconds later where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that we're home
mm,
because for 2 years, we didn't know if we were going to get Christmas at home because we were always in the
mm.
hospital. So it's been a very interesting experience, and I almost get overwhelmed sometimes and I have to stop and I'm just like, Lord, like help me navigate. I feel like I am overflowing with these emotions, but I do think that there's a clarity this year and I'm feeling things a lot deeper this year than I did the year before. And I was not expecting that.
I think that's one of the reasons why they say, and maybe you've heard this too, that year two is worse than year one.
I have not heard that, but that
You've
makes
not,
sense.
yeah, for a
No.
lot of people, and it's a common comment that I see is that, well, like, yeah, I'm in year two and it's actually been worse than the first year. For those who are allowing themselves to go through the process, that first year has been a fog
Mm,
thereabouts, not a hard deadline. It's not like, oh, all right, time's up. Year two, here we go, new chapter,
right.
clean breaks. But there's a lot, it's like a stupor. This,
Mm.
what in the world do I do with myself? Like,
Yes.
what do I even do? Like, how do I even begin to wrap my mind around that? And you're just kind of a zombie almost. Like whenever you are driving somewhere and you don't know how in the world you got from point A to point B,
Yes.
but somehow it happened and you're like,
Mm,
how on earth did I live through that? So it's kind of a similar thing with grief.
mm,
And so when that initial shock factor has kind of calmed down a little bit, that inflamed nerve, if you will, has calmed down, you're more aware.
mm,
You're more aware of different things and more realizations start kind of occurring to you. You see it beyond the immediate need to survive, you
mm.
know? Like if your adrenaline's pumping, I love analogies if you can't tell, but
Yeah.
if your adrenaline's pumping and you're going about doing something to survive and you might cut your hand, but because the blood flow and like the sensation to your extremities has kind of dulled a little bit to
Mm,
maintain all the vital things, you don't even realize that your hand is bleeding. Then you can start to realize, oh, my hand's bleeding. I should probably tend to that wound.
I should
Or that hurts. I didn't realize that hurts, but it actually
mm,
hurts. So things like that can happen. I mean, even you talk about looking at ornaments on the tree. I think it was 2 years ago already. I was looking at, we had just decorated the tree and I was looking at a series of ornaments. And one of my favorite parts, it's bittersweet, but one of my favorite parts about it is pulling out all the ones that Johnny had made over the
mm-hmm.
years and just the special little sentimental ornaments. I love a designer tree, like the look of it all, but nothing beats,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
all the ornaments that my son has made over the years. And what occurred to me though, there are a couple, there are some pictures of John and Johnny. As I was looking at them, I realized, oh my goodness, every single one of these have been made since John died. Like
Mm,
he was not here to see a single one of them that Johnny brought home and to put on the tree with him.
yeah.
Or he was not here for a single one of these to do the very thing that I got to experience, which was enjoy them and look back with a little sweet smile of Johnny made this or and then seeing the one that's a picture of John and Johnny and just knowing how much he has grown since then and
Mm-hmm.
how much has taken place since that picture was taken. It's a thing where I mean, and actually I ended up making a video of it, and the song that I used was I can't remember the name of the fellow who sings it, but it's glitter. Grief is just like glitter.
Mm,
And you know, if you dump a whole bottle of glitter in your sock drawer or anywhere in your house, are you ever going to get every little speck of
mm,
glitter?
mm,
No, no, not good luck. Maybe if you were a forensic cleanup team,
mm,
but no, there is no way you're getting every single because it's like somebody comes along and takes buckets of glitter and just puts it all or lets it loose in your life. and it gets into every little corner and crevice. And yes, the first year or so is you can get the bulk of it up and put away. But at times, even years later, weeks, months, years down the road, you're going to have a light that shines on a certain corner of it, and it reflects and it catches your attention.
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time. And it might trigger tears. It might trigger a smile. It might trigger a face palm. It might trigger a breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
Any number of these different things. And you can still be thankful and joyful for some things happening in your life now while holding space for your younger self who experienced that before.
Yeah. It's funny because like the whole time you're talking about the glitter, I was thinking about the number of times that the room that we had for Marceline originally was upstairs, and it's now Bree's nursery.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to move her to our downstairs guest bedroom because it was just not practical for us
Yeah.
moving her up and down the stairs and all of her equipment. It's now switched back to a guest bedroom because a lot of the nursery things I needed them for Bree, and I moved them back up. And still, when I'm cleaning that room, I will occasionally find like a little alcohol swab, or I'll find part of her respiratory therapies, like the little vials of saline would have these little tabs on top. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
find like
Oh, yeah, the little.
yeah, the little tab, I'll find it like buried
Mm-hmm.
in the carpet. And I go, there's another one. But with each holiday season, one thing that I am struggling with is feeling further away from her.
Yeah.
I love celebrating. Like I love celebrating and finding the joy in those seasons and each year that passes. And oh, here's the new ornament that we're hanging on the tree, or we're going to add this new tradition because it sounds like a fun thing to do. And I think about that I feel further away from her.
Mm-hmm.
How have you have you felt that? How have you navigated
Mm-hmm.
that in your own journey?
That sense of betrayal for continuing to live your life.
Yeah.
That is where the concept of loving forward was born. It's just one little letter off in the alphabet from moving forward, which is a step different, and a shift away from the phrase we all hate, moving on. It began with me the first time that occurred to me, distinctively, out of the stupor. It was August of 2019, and John had gotten me a French press, a stainless steel French press, and usually it's like a 32 ounce, so it would be just right for us to have like two decent sized mugs, right? So usually I would make us 2 cups. I'd pour mine. Okay, great. And then when he was no longer enjoying coffee with me during his illness, I would still take my little French press and my electric kettle to the hospital, and I had my little thermos where I would pour my cup in whatever cup I had, and then I would save the other for a second cup later.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I grew accustomed to doing that. I hadn't made coffee for two in quite some time, and I was visiting my parents back home in Pennsylvania for a little right before Johnny started school visit. And I decided to make some French press, but that time I was making it for both my mom and me. And I poured my coffee, and then I poured my mom's, and then I went to go, even though it was pretty much empty, I went to go pour what was in my carafe or my little thermos. And I thought, well, obviously there's not going to be coffee to pour in there because I just filled both cups. But what hit me, and you might be wondering, what on earth does this have to do with betrayal?
No,
But what hit me was, oh my goodness, I forgot the process of making coffee for two, which means I had gotten so used to making it for just me.
Mm.
And I thought, oh my goodness, like how could I? Like this sense of betrayal of how on earth could I have not already, because it was still fairly fresh, like it was still within the first year, but it was still that stark reminder of how could I, that whisper, that little light, like how could you?
Mm-hmm.
How could you forget what it was like to make coffee for two, like with your husband? Like, what's wrong with you? So, and there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing
Right.
abnormal about that thought process, but that's a common thing where people feel the sense of betrayal for continuing to live their life, knowing that their loved one isn't here to live it with them. What I realized, though, what the Lord showed me is that obviously that's a big hallmark of grief. It's a big tattoo of grief, is that sense of betrayal. But another big tattoo or hallmark of love, grief is immense love. It's love with nowhere to go, for the
Right.
person isn't here to receive it anymore. But a big hallmark of love is your freedom to be your authentic self. It's the freedom to live a meaningful, full life.
Right.
And that includes enjoying different things in your life. That includes being able to enjoy the holidays, enjoy a cup of coffee by yourself or with your mom, and then honor their memory. You carry it with you, and you don't have to feel this sense of betrayal if you have a sense of relief that you're not in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel a sense of relief that you are not having to be up in the middle of the night for the same reasons
Mm-hmm.
with a newborn as you would be for meeting the medical complexities of your daughter. But then there's also the feeling of fear of what if I forget,
Yeah.
and being apart from, you get further away from. And I understand that fear too. Sometimes I still have that.
It's like certain things feel tangible still, and certain things don't.
Yeah.
So for a while after she passed, I could feel her still. Like
Yeah.
if I thought about it, I could feel what it felt like to hold, because I held that baby all the time, because that was the only thing that would keep her sometimes from having seizures, was just for me to hold her for hours.
Mm.
And so I could feel that, or like smells, things like that. With each season that passes, especially holidays and things like that, I feel like I'm getting further away from those memories, and that's what makes it hard. But it's almost like I have this thing in my mind where I'm like, if I make a new memory, I'm afraid that the other one will go away.
Yeah.
And that's hard because I I don't want to I don't want to prevent myself from making like cultivating new memories. I just want to make space. And it's
Mm.
like, okay, but I know that at some point certain things are going to fade, and I have to kind of be okay with that. But I feel like I'm sometimes holding on like to dear
Mm-hmm.
life for those things, clinging on to these things that I'm like, I feel like I can still remember them. I can still remember them, but I want to make space too. It's just
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I felt similarly as well. Even sometimes now where it's like, oh my goodness, or like for Johnny, like thank goodness for videos
Oh,
that we
yes.
have, that helps to solidify memories, like for Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was before, like at the time that John got sick, he was about just over 3.5. So he was a little guy. In a sense, creating a scrapbook of those memories, or creating, like an album, for you to really look back on. And journaling, I know you do a lot of writing and journaling. That's big time helpful, where just in case that there are certain things that you want to be able to hold on to, even if they're heavy, but to just for documenting your journey and documenting your life and documenting your daughter's life. The other aspect of it is that, and I don't say this insensitively, but we're not meant to hold on to everything.
Oh, absolutely.
And even when it comes to like the littleness of your children, let's say, who did not have medical complexities, the common thread that so many parents share is, oh, time is a stinking thief, I tell you. And you just wish you could go back to them being little, of course. And if you've ached for the youngness, the littleness of your kids at all, you can understand where it's like, I just wish I knew more of what that was like. We talk about the stupor, we talk about the fog. I look back at some videos of whenever Johnny was, 4 or 5, around kindergarten time. I thought, golly, I was robbed.
Right? Like,
Like
because you're so foggy.
it's so foggy. And even the year that he was 3, like from 3.5 to 4.5, I thought, doggone it, I was robbed. Like, where I'll see
Mhm.
videos where I was so preoccupied with like what was going on in my life that I couldn't just absorb all of that.
In our logical brains, we know that we're not meant to hold on to everything,
Mm-hmm.
but we want to so badly.
Movie Inside Out comes to mind. I
Oh,
believe that's
I've
what
been
it's
thinking
called.
about it so much this whole conversation.
Yes, yes. And I haven't seen the second one yet, but in
Oh,
the first one, we see that it's because of sadness
mm,
that Riley can make progress and like open her life, open her heart back into her parents, and receive the support that she needs in order to turn a new leaf.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of sadness. So you don't need to hush up grief and hush up sadness and just, hey, wear a cheesy Stepford Wives
Mm-hmm.
smile. That's not joy.
Yes.
Phony happiness and fake happiness and masked sadness is not joy.
Right.
Joy is acknowledgement of all the full spectrum of your human experience and choosing to look ahead towards hope.
Mm-hmm.
That's what joy is. It's knowing that your strength does not come from yourself holding it all together and
Mm-hmm.
denying the existence of bad. It
Yeah.
is a full acknowledgement of the bad and allowing room for the Holy Spirit to minister to you and hold you in spite of it all.
I'm laughing so much that you mentioned Inside Out because I was thinking I had a vision in my head and I was not going to say it because I was like I will sob if I talk about this. But I love that you brought up Inside Out. The whole time we were talking about memories and you're talking and I was saying I'm having such a hard time because I feel like I'm just like I'm holding on to what was. I'm afraid that if we make new memories and we make new traditions, that she's going to feel forgotten or that she's going to be forgotten in my brain or whatever. We're not meant to hold everything. Like I have a friend that does Bible study with me and she says I hold loosely to things now. Like I hold them, but I'm willing to let them go. And you mentioned Inside Out and the whole time I was thinking about Bing Bong.
Yes, you made a video about that recently.
I made that video. It was just because the audio fit.
Mm-hmm.
But now the visual, I have that visual of the memory of Bing Bong and him being like willing to let joy go forward. You know, that he was like, it's okay. Like I'm okay. I'm content with fading so that
Mm-hmm.
Riley can move forward because it's not about me. I think about that and I'm like, I feel as though Marcelly, obviously I'm never gonna forget her. Like we will never forget her. She's my daughter. But I think she's got bigger things that she's worried about in heaven with the Lord than what specific traditions I'm holding on to here
Mm-hmm.
on earth. And I feel like that perspective is important for me to keep is that
Yeah.
she has so many good things that
Mm-hmm.
she's attending to and it's okay for me to grieve her and like don't tell people they're in a better place. Don't go do that.
No,
They're in
yes,
spiritual grief. That's not the
that
point
is
of this.
not a comforting
It's
thought.
not a
That's
comforting
not
thought.
it doesn't
No.
have the impact people think it does.
It's good to give myself the space to let go and to I like what you said, love forward.
Well, I mean, we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. So, yes, I
Mm,
do believe, while I don't think John is sitting there with some popcorn just watching everything happening in my life necessarily, I do believe that, I believe he can, intercede on my behalf
sure.
in a sense. And he's watching, we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. But what a nice visual is for me, and this is, kind of another illustration that the Lord ministered to me through was as you choose to allow the blossom of your life to continue blossoming and you're not just this bud that you just keep tightly closed because you're afraid to let go or you're afraid to keep living because they're not here to enjoy it with you or all the different things as you learn to open up gradually. It's not overnight. As that happens though, it's a much more beautiful view from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's not to say that a bud isn't beautiful, but the fullness of a blossom can be enjoyed from that perspective when you allow it to continue to bloom.
Mm.
And the fragrance of it, I mean, the aesthetic of it and the aroma of it here, the fragrance of that flower blesses other people. And it's a great view from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a flower on the grave, so to speak.
Well, I like that. And Marcelly's middle name was Rose. So I will think about that when I look at our rose bush outside that we have. I think I am finding some peace
Mm-hmm.
in developing new traditions that
Mm-hmm.
are separate, even though, like I said, it's hard to feel like I'm moving forward. It does help a little bit to be like, let's do something new.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a little bit of what we did before and keep that and hold on to that. And then let's also add some new things
Mm-hmm.
in there. What traditions did y'all feel grounded you if any, like during the holidays? And then what other traditions have brought you guys joy as as you
Mhm.
and Johnny have navigated together?
As I mentioned a minute ago, Johnny was still pretty little
Mm-hmm.
at the time. So we had, well, I mean, he wouldn't have any memory of 2014. That's the year he was born. He was 6 months old then. We had four Christmases
Mm-hmm.
with Johnny before his fifth one was just him and me. So those four Christmases, two of which would not have been very memorable. He maybe would have probably would not remember two and a half. One Christmas that he would really remember any of it. So we had, some tradition where, we of course put up the tree. But here's the thing about John is that he wasn't the Grinch
Mm-hmm.
before his heart grew two sizes that day or three sizes that day, but he also wasn't Buddy the Elf either. So
That's fair.
yeah. So he wasn't the Grinch, but he wasn't Buddy the Elf. So I'm usually the one who
Mm-hmm.
drinks. I was the one who drank from the cup of cheer. We still had some Christmas spirit, if you will. So we were kind of developing our family traditions.
Yeah.
And that was largely built on, what I had grown up with. And we would always go visit my family in Pennsylvania and we would stay with them. And then we would do, the traditional stuff up there. Johnny and I have since, like, I've just largely tried to replicate for him
Mm.
what a lot of what my parents did for me growing up, doing all the special things, decorating. I'm still in the process of decorating here now. Making the house festive and
Mm-hmm.
making wassail, which is Johnny's favorite thing. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
No.
it's like a spiced cider. A lot of people think it's you would equate that, but I'll just tell you the recipe real fast. It's 2 parts apple cider or unfiltered apple juice to 1 part orange juice or orange mixed with pineapple juice. And then you put that in a crock pot with a couple cinnamon sticks. And then you take an orange, you put cloves all in it, and then you stick that in like a mace and you put that in there. And then you let it simmer into oblivion to your heart's content. And then once it gets spicy, or too spicy, you pull those out and it's wonderful. It smells
Ooh.
like Christmas. So, yeah, so that's one, like Johnny's favorite thing and his special Pikachu mug and, like watching
Mhm.
Christmas movies and new pajamas on Christmas Eve with hot chocolate. And then, I mean, I'm sure a lot of these things are not unique to us, I'm sure. Like my dad, um, whenever my brother and I were growing up, he would count down from like how many steps we could take. Like, okay, you can take two more steps or one more step, and then we'd be coming down the steps step by step until he finally told us we could go get our stockings first, and then we'd get our stockings, and then we'd go in, and he'd have his little Santa hat on or whatever. They'd have Christmas music playing, and my mom would usually make a special breakfast, and then we'd read the Christmas story, and then we would open gifts one at a time, just things like that. And then we'll go up to my parents' house in Pennsylvania. So Johnny gets a new ornament every year.
Oh,
And
I love that.
yeah, well, so those are some of our traditions. And of course, he's very excited about, certain decorations that we get down from the
Mhm.
attic. And he just, some of the
I
typical things. How about you?
I feel like the first couple of years of Liam's life, we were just like figuring it out. The first couple of years that we were married, I was still in school and we were the oldest in both of our families. So it was a lot
Mm-hmm.
of just going back and forth to my parents' house and his parents' house. And then even when Liam was little, we were still trying to figure out traditions and things like that. When he was 3, we had the pandemic. We still did all of our Christmas decorations and things like that, but we couldn't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so that was
Yeah.
hard. But one thing that we did the first Christmas that after Marsley was born was we went and drove around to see this neighborhood that is well known in our community to have great Christmas lights. Like the whole neighborhood, they just do it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember not feeling confident about going. And Josh was
Mm-hmm.
like, we can do it. We can go. Because traveling with her, even 5 minutes down the road, was often really hard because we had to take a lot of equipment with us. And he was like, we can do it. Like, let's go. Let's do it. And I'm so glad that we did it.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't do it again until like a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we went, and I wasn't sure how I was going to handle it. But we drove through it and I was like, I'm so glad that we did this because Liam had a blast. He thought everything was just so cool. He loved all of the decorations and all the lights. And even though it was a little bittersweet because we had not done it since, Marcelly had been here, I was happy to bring that back. We watch the movie The Santa Claus every year. He thinks that that is the most hilarious movie ever,
Mhm.
which I don't disagree. It's
Yeah.
great. Um, and just the typical, I say typical traditions of decorating and picking out presents and wrapping everything, but I I feel like grief has made me appreciate the typical in a
Yeah.
way that I didn't before. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we were in and out of the hospital a lot during the holidays. But I do. I appreciate those typical traditions more now than I
Mhm.
previously did.
It puts into perspective like what all really goes into being able to do it, or
That
being able
too.
to, yeah,
Hmm.
being able to do it without having to have a lot of all of the packing list of all the things you would have to make sure that you had, like you said, to go up the, just go down the street. Or yeah, it just puts into perspective everything that has to be in place in order for you to be able to enjoy doing things freely that you just didn't realize before. That's a big thing that grief does, is it puts a lot of things into perspective. When other people share their story, it reminds you of things that you need to be reminded of, even after you've walked through it yourself.
I like that you say that because one thing that Josh and I say frequently when we talk about what have we learned, and he always says perspective and gratitude, perspective and gratitude over and over and over again. And then my thing is compassion, like truly just having compassion for other people. And I like having these conversations because even though grief is an uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
conversation to have, I
Yeah.
think it's important because it just truly allows us to have more compassion for other people. What do you feel like was helpful versus hurtful for you in those first kind of like big holiday seasons after John passed? Was there anything that was like, even maybe you didn't realize how helpful it was then, but like now looking back on it, you're like, gosh, that warmed my heart. Like I needed
Mm-hmm.
that so much.
Receiving Christmas cards,
Oh,
you know,
really? That's interesting.
receiving Christmas cards. One, well, because the weird thing is, it was kind of like this. Oh yeah, whoo, most wonderful time of the year, merry and bright. Hey,
Mm,
and not feeling all that merry and bright. However, being remembered, being considered
mm,
at Christmas time without people feeling like, oh, I don't want to send like this. Here we go, happy, happy, cheer, cheer card. Like it's still like I still want to share. Like yes, it can be a painful thing to see other families enjoying the life that I maybe wish I had, or a reminder of what I no longer have. At times that can be tough to see, but it's still nice to be included.
that is so encouraging about the Christmas cards because I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I think that puts a different perspective around the impact that Christmas cards can have. Because I think a lot of us as millennials have been like, yeah, my mom
Yeah.
did that, but maybe I don't do that. And it's fine if you choose not to do it. But that's a really neat
Mm-hmm.
way, I think, to include people that might be going through a hard time. I love that.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I have done them the years that I could.
Yeah.
Sometimes practically, I just didn't have the bandwidth.
Oh, yeah.
There are sometimes that, but also it gives people something fun to open in the mail that isn't a bill.
Yes.
Going back to Blue's Clues, and I didn't really watch it all that much, but people get excited about the mail. I'm sure that there are some people where it is painful for
Sure.
them to see an announcement, like when my cousin just got married in October and we attended the wedding, and it's married and bright, and it's a beautiful card. That might have been difficult for me to see that first year or maybe the second year, but I still am happy for her, and I'm still
Mhm.
like, oh, it's still nice to see it, and again, to be thought of and considered, that they would include me on their list, that they had to have entered my address, that they would have paid for the postage to come to
Mhm.
me. Like
Yeah.
sometimes, as far as an advice kind of thing, as far as, how to support somebody who's going through it, still invite them to things, give them the
Yes.
option to decline versus say no for them.
Yes.
Grief is already alienating in and of itself. Don't make them feel like that is now the box they have to live in. Still invite them to be a part of your life, or to, to enjoy that happy things, even if they're feeling a certain kind of way. Give them the freedom to say no, but then
Hmm.
you're still they're still remembered. So things like somebody still thinking to send me a Christmas card was helpful, and even the practical things, because I mean, grief is exhausting, even
Hmm.
years down the road. Like the burden of like, and it's different. The way that it shows up practically in our life is different than the way that it does in your life. It doesn't mean one is better or worse,
Sure.
than the other. A year later, though,
Yes.
again, thinking about the timelines, there were things about Christmas 2019 that were harder about 2018 for different reasons. And then even in 2020, when anybody would be like, "Hey, thinking of you. I know this time of year, bearing being the only parent at Christmas time, it's a very busy time of life for any parent. So a practical, like a meal, or sometimes there were somebody had sent us DoorDash or something, like a card or something that took off the mental load of having to
Yes.
think about, you know whoever thought that one of the most difficult parts of being an adult was deciding what's for dinner all the time.
I just made
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
list. This is so off topic, but I just
Hmm.
made a list of 40 recipes that I was like, I can do this. And I had to insert it into ChatGPT and say, mix this up for me
Hmm.
so that I can not get fatigued with
Hmm.
what I'm cooking every single week, and I'm not resorting to Taco Tuesday on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of every single
Hmm.
week. So,
Hmm.
yes, that is relatable. 100%. The number of DoorDash gift cards we got that saved us from hospital food.
Hmm.
Such a blessing.
The decision fatigue, that really helps with decision fatigue, for one. And not only that, but for it to be like just an expense that's covered for somebody else to be able to bring the food to me versus me having to
Hmm.
go get it. And depending on how old Johnny was, also bring him with me to go get it.
Yep.
Or if I didn't have something readily available to cook, again, having to go to the store and bring it back and maybe take him with me, or have to arrange for somebody else to keep it. All these things. I'm kind of scattered. I'm just kind of
No, you're
rambling here
fine.
at this
You're
point.
fine. If somebody was like, I don't know how to, if they said, I have somebody who is going through loss and I want to support them during the holidays, or I want to care for them and help them, I don't know where to start.
Mm.
What do you tell them? Have you had people ask you this before?
Yeah, there have
Yeah.
been people who have asked me like, how, okay, so like, and you've done the same, something similar, where it's like we will offer words of caution of what is not helpful,
Yes.
things not to say, i.e., I know how you feel. Some people have different thoughts on that, but I know how you feel. I'm like, yeah, but do you?
But do you?
Do you really though? The things like that. But then, okay, well, what is helpful? Well, again, considering them,
Hmm.
letting them know when you're thinking of them, not being afraid to say their loved one's name who they lost.
Yes.
Because when you just kind of skirt around the name and you skirt around the topic, it's almost acting like the person never existed. It's just not that you want to pretend like they're there, but like an acknowledgement of the person's experience, and that can, it doesn't have to be like awkward, like, hey, I was thinking about John. In my case, hey, you know what? I was thinking about something funny, a funny memory I had with John, and I just thought I'd tell you,
Hmm.
because when you're like telling the person, it's nice that their person is remembered.
Yeah.
As the days go by, as the months, the weeks, the years go by, it's nice to hear that somebody else remembers.
Yeah.
So, one, not being afraid to say their name is, or sharing something that, hey, I really learned this from somebody, or I was thinking about this and I remembered what John said, or whatever, whatever it might be, something that they remembered. Still including them in your life,
Hmm.
including them with, inviting them out for coffee, inviting them out to eat, inviting them to go look at Christmas lights, inviting them to come to the party. Even if they do say no, it's
Hmm.
still nice to be included and considered. So invite them to do the things. And then also just being present, the ministry of presence.
Mm,
So many people feel like, I mean, we're in, in like a solutions based society, or doing like you're only valuable if you're doing something,
yeah.
or you're only valuable if you rescue them from whatever is causing the pain. And you can't, okay, the best way to minister to somebody while they're in pain is to not try to necessarily, like with grief, the best way to minister to somebody who is enduring the pain of grief is to not try to rush them through it or to try to take it away, because there's nothing that you can do to take it away. But if
Yeah.
you do try to take it away, you're going to make it worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the big thing, is to simply be present with them in it.
Hmm.
So that might be, hey, I have this box of brownie mix that, I would love to be able to make. Would it be okay if I come make it at your house? Something like that. Or like, hey, I just made some cookies. Can I bring you some? Or, can I just got a new book and I would love to read it, but I keep, falling asleep in this spot and not being able to read my book. Can I come read it at your house? Or
Yeah.
something? Or, hey, it might be weird if you want to come fold laundry at somebody else's house, but let's have a laundry folding party. You have some laundry that you need to wash and we can fold laundry together. Or, you know what I mean? It's just something. And then, I don't know, maybe whenever you're just simply there, maybe they'll open up, maybe they'll talk about it, maybe something will come to light that you can practically help them with at their home, or vice versa. Hey, do you want to come over and just sit with me while I weave a basket underwater? Something.
I mean, I love some of the most helpful things were people just sitting with
Mm-hmm.
us, literally
Mm-hmm.
just being like, I don't have an agenda or a task or anything to do. Can I just come sit with you? Marcelie's occupational therapist, right? Especially in the months after she passed, she would ask me what I was doing on our regularly scheduled time, which was
Mm-hmm.
nothing. And she was like, she didn't have a patient at that time. So she's like, can I come and just sit with you and have coffee? And I'm like, yup.
Uh-huh.
And then after Bree was born, there was the same thing a couple of times where she'd come over and just, she's like, can I change a diaper? Can I just sit with you? And I was like, yeah, here, I baked this. I grief baked this today. Would you like this?
Mm-hmm.
I can have this. Yeah, like we had friends that would come up and they're like, hey, I'm coming to make you chicken Alfredo and I'll do the dishes after. Like just people
Mm-hmm.
willing to just be, and they don't have words of advice and they don't have
Mm-hmm.
maybe even a word at all, but
Mm-hmm.
just to sit
Mm-hmm.
were some of my favorite people because I
Mm-hmm.
was like, thank you for
Mm-hmm.
like I don't have to sit alone in this house right now.
Mm-hmm. And
Uh,
yeah, just being present.
yeah.
And another one just came to mind is, and I've done the same thing, and still have to, sometimes even remind myself now, is instead of asking, or not even asking, um, what's the phrase people like to use? Like, if there's anything you need, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, what can I do? One, it is helpful to hear, like, what can I do? My sister asked me this one, what can I do that would help you feel supported? And
Yeah.
I really appreciated that. The flip side of that is sometimes I can barely even think about, what to eat, let alone what can I think of
Sure.
that would be helpful for you to do, that isn't something that requires a lot of thought to explain. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that one's kind of a double-edged sword. But if you need anything, let me know. That part is like, well, there's a lot of need, but I don't want to feel like a burden, and I don't want to just reach out. And sometimes it can feel like that's only said because it's the right thing to say versus somebody actually being willing to back it up. And that's not to call people liars. It's just that
No.
it's difficult to think of something and then ask.
Yes.
So for somebody to just say, "Hey, I'm bringing a meal. I'm bringing a meal for you. Is Monday or Tuesday better?
Right.
Or is Chipotle or Chick-fil-A better?"
Sometimes it is hard. Like sometimes even if you're not the person that's walking through it directly, like you're still impacted and you're grieving in a sense too. And like you don't Like you want to support because you feel like you can support, but you also are like at a loss for words. And I have at times when I've been in that position been like, I it is okay if you have no idea what you need in this moment. How can I best support you? And if you don't have an answer for that right now, that's fine. Like,
Mm-hmm.
take your time. Like, don't feel pressure to respond to me right now. If there's nothing that you can think of right this moment, I'm going to check back in with you like 2 or 3 days from now. Is that okay? Like, is it
Yeah.
okay if I check in with you in a couple of days? Do you want me to check in with you like once a week? Would that be helpful? Like just
Mm-hmm.
checking in, giving you a call, like calling you on the phone, sending you a text message. When I feel like my own capacity has been reduced and I want to be honest with them about what I can help with, I've done that before where I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, can I just check in with you? Like how often would you like me to check in with you? It's okay if you
Mm-hmm.
don't know exactly what support you need right this moment, but I will call you back and I will make sure you're not forgotten, basically.
Yeah, that's a big
Um,
one. That where, hey, don't, no pressure to respond.
yes.
Just checking in on you. You can ask a question, but just like, hey, how you doing? It's okay if you don't have the energy or the wherewithal to respond. Totally get it. I just want you to know
Mhm.
I'm here for you. I'm thinking of you. That's a big one. You'll read something with the where you can't respond right now, or you don't have it in you to respond right then, and you have these dreams and plans of responding, but that may or may not happen.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah, it may or may not happen. Well, it's for somebody who, if you specific, especially if you already struggle with that, and then you add the elements of grief to it, that can make it worse. Or somebody who used to be on top of responding, suddenly their capacity can be zero for
Mm,
that. So that's the big one.
yeah.
Where it's like, well, if they're not going to reply, then why even reach out? No, yes, still reach out, but just don't reach out with the expectation of getting something in return, even if that is the courtesy of a reply.
Yeah.
Even if you just hear crickets, it doesn't mean that it didn't serve the purpose of meeting a ministerial need.
Oh, for sure. And I think that might be the biggest thing that I've learned personally about serving other people who are walking through grief is like true service, like really is about recognizing like doing everything without expecting anything and nothing in return, like just truly giving of your heart, like truly serving other people just for the sake of service. My pastor mentioned, I'm probably going to butcher the way that he said this because he said it so well, but he pointed out the fact that like the original words in the Bible for worship and service are the same.
Mm,
And I didn't know that. And so he was
mm,
basically drawing a point of like when you are serving other people, it is an act of worship for the
mm,
Lord. And I think that if we have that perspective,
mm,
it it allows us to serve people more faithfully and with a heart of love rather than, oh, I feel like this is the right thing to do. You mentioned that Emmanuel, the concept of God with us, was something you felt, I guess, more deeply or that you understood more deeply in your season of loss. Can you articulate that a little bit more, kind of expand on that a little bit more? And then what hope does that allow you to carry forward? What hope do you want people maybe who are walking through grief now, like fresh
mm.
grief, to take away?
Emmanuel, yeah, means God with us. And, we hear the song, O come, Emmanuel. Before it was just kind of a churchy name, a churchy
Mm,
word. Before, I mean, and I knew what it meant, but it just took on more meaning now going, along with another Christmas carol. Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
mhm,
And where, from now on, one of the lines, from now on, our troubles will be out of sight. I'm like, according to
mhm,
who? Since when? Like,
mm.
no, it's not. Let's not turn a blind eye to the very real suffering that we have going on in our lives. And from now on, all because Christmas is here, that our burden, like our troubles are nowhere to be seen. No, not
Mhm.
necessarily. It's not from now on, our troubles will be out of sight. It's no, Jesus bore our burdens. It will be all right. And he's only he bore our burdens because he first came with us, to be with us, to fully experience the spectrum of humanity. with us. And though he himself was without sin, he took on all of our sin and has enabled us to experience the hope that is ahead of us. So he came here. He understood human suffering because he took on the full result of human suffering. He experienced loss and he empathized with Mary and Martha when they lost Lazarus, who was also his friend. So he felt the groans of grief. He didn't come here to just say, all right, I've been here, done that, have fun, humanity, I'm out. He came here so that he could fully empathize with us. It's interesting, my first holiday was, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and your first holiday was Easter, bookends, if you will, to the ministry of Christ here. And that's the hope I would hope people would get from this, is that God is with you in your struggle, and he has sent the Holy Spirit to comfort you so that you can comfort other people with the comfort you have first received. And you cannot give what you haven't first received. You cannot give empathy that you haven't first felt deeply. Jesus is the epitome of that. In Emmanuel, God with us. So he came to earth then. He's still with you now, even if it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, amen. I always, when I think about Christ's suffering, I actually go to the garden. In our journey, that image of Jesus in the garden is the one that I have clung to a lot, which might seem a little bit odd, but the reason I cling to it is because he knew what was coming. He knew that it was going to be painful. He said, if it is your will, take this cup from me, but not my will, your will be done. And faithfully, obediently, willingly walked ahead to what he was going to suffer through. But in that, he was grieving so intensely, he was sweating drops of blood. And there's actually a medical term for that. And it has documented cases of that happening under severe stress and agony. And in that moment, he wasn't left alone. Scripture tells us that he was sustained by the Holy Spirit. And so I clung to that so heavily all the way through our journey, and even in this after period, because I'm like, all right, like if Jesus, like, I'm not Jesus, but Jesus, if he knew what was coming and he could faithfully and obediently walk through it, and the Lord sustained him, he will also do the same. That image of he went through all of that agony, and so he understands us fully, and he knows, and he can comfort us like to the fullest extent, gave me so much comfort in this journey. I think it also, and this might be a little bit of a sidetrack, but I've talked about this with Josh, it also has allowed me to rest fully on him for comfort first, and give grace to people when they fell short. So we need to give ourselves grace. And I think having that knowledge of Christ being my ultimate comforter, and the one who can fully embody that humanity and the divinity of God, allows me to take people off of a pedestal and reduce my expectations a little bit, and give grace to people and rest in him truly for comfort.
I understand that. And actually, you remind me, where you said the Holy Spirit sustained Jesus. Like, he prays and asks the Lord to remove the cup. And this is part of what the Lord kind of helped me, is like, well, it's not so much about him removing the cup. And again, people say, well, why would a good, loving father not stop it from happening? It's not about him removing the cup, but it's about what he pours into the cup. And I would love to know what actually, like, what did it actually look like, practically speaking, literally speaking? What did that ministering to Jesus look like at that time? You know what I mean? I would love to know what it was. Was it a scratching to the back? Was it a
nap and a
was it a
snack like
hug?
Elijah?
Was it a nap and a snack? Like, and I don't say it to make light of it. I just
No, I know.
I would love to know what that actually, like, literally looked like. When we look at Christ as the standard, and we realize our own shortcomings, it should give us an increased capacity to extend the same grace to other people when we know ourselves know the grace that we need.
It's hard though. It's hard when
Yeah.
you're especially when you're
Oh,
grieving. It's hard.
yes. And even when you're not fresh in it, it can be easy to get caught up when, somebody is spouting some nonsense. It just, oh yeah. And then you realize, like, well, I just was reminded of my own need for grace
Yes.
when responding. So yeah, it happens.
Well, I have loved our conversation here, and I think that I know we've touched on a lot, but I think I mainly just want people to kind of take away that regardless of where they are in their grief, the holiday season can bring up a lot of complex emotions. It can bring a lot of weight with it, and that's okay. I feel like as a culture, I would love for us to not fear grief so much. I really would, because I think that there's so much room, our hearts have so much room than we give them credit for to hold space for all of those emotions.
Yeah.
And so, regardless of where people are, I hope people take from this conversation a feeling of hope and a feeling of not being alone in this journey, because all of us are in some capacity at some point in our lives going to experience grief and suffering and loss. And they're not alone in the fact that they're surrounded by people in this world who are experiencing similar things, but they're also, that God is in this with them and that He is not abandoning them, especially in the holidays, as hard as it may seem to find joy. There's so much joy. There's so much joy to be had. And it's okay to grieve and to have that joy at the same time.
The duality of grief. And actually, I had written about this. Is it okay if I do a shameless plug?
Of course
If
you
you
can. Yes.
So, and I wrote about this very thing, and I haven't talked about it much, but this is a book collaboration that I did with Hope Books. And the verse that I used as my anchor was Ezra 3:13. No one could distinguish the sounds of the shouts of joy from the sound of weeping, because the people made so much noise and the sound was heard from far away. And that is in Ezra when they finally returned to Jerusalem from Babylonian exile, and they see the temple destroyed. And you have some people who were old enough to have been there and they saw its glory once before, and now they just see destruction and ruin, and they're glad to be back, but they're grieved. And then you have people who were born in Babylonian exile, or they were too little to remember, and then they come back and they're just excited, we're rebuilding. But there's room for both. You can be excited and exceedingly grateful to be rebuilding, and also be heartbroken and shattered over the rubble that remains. And it's still a process of sorting through the rubble and then laying down new bricks. Part of the foundation may still be intact, and you're still rebuilding with, and you're honoring what was, while still making room for what can be. And it might be one tear-stained brick at a time, but it doesn't have to be built overnight. It doesn't have to be built and pretty immediately. And it's okay to accept help.
Yeah.
To lay them. I had just written a chapter. It was a collaboration, and it was, loving forward. My chapters, well, the book's called The Art of Letting Go: How to Heal, Move Forward, and Embrace a New Chapter.
I feel like I heard you talk about this and then I forgot to ask you. So is that available? Like people can purchase that now or not yet? Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. And then I have some author copies if anyone want, I can send one directly. But that's yes, but my chapter, I'm the author of chapter 4. Now there are 9 authors total. Yes, so there are other stories. Some of it is grief, some of it is learning to process through different kinds of grief. Some of it is just different forms. But the chapter I had written is chapter 4, loving forward, letting God write a new chapter without erasing the one that changed everything.
Love that.
But it supports, me, and then involves, you see the writing of other, 8 other authors, but that touches more. Some of it is more of the specific details of my life, but then more about some of what we talked about tonight. if anybody was interested in digging a little bit deeper.
I'll put a link in the description so people can. So send. As you said, it's on Amazon.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll find it on Amazon. And I'll put a link to it. So that'll be. But I'm glad that you reminded me of that, because before we got on here, I was like, I know she's written something. And I was like, did she write a whole book?
I have
Did she write?
plans to do a whole book.
Oh yeah, well that's
Not a whole
same.
book yet.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're both in process on that one. But
Yeah.
I was like, I know she's published something, and I couldn't remember what it was. So I'm glad that you said that. I feel like we've had great conversation. I appreciate you very much. I'm glad we did this. I know that it's late, and I know that we're sleepy mamas, but I am grateful for this conversation. Thank you for being
Oh,
here.
you're welcome. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to come along here
Oh, of
and
course.
sharing me with your people.
Yes, yes, for sure. This is, I am still learning and in process with all of this, but I'm excited to get this edited and share it all. So I will attempt to pray without sobbing, but I will attempt to pray us out. So,
Yes, ma'am.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time. Thank you so much for the good work that you're doing through Alexandra. I just am grateful that you have put our paths so close to one another and that we have been able to fellowship with one another. Thank you for this great conversation, for blessing this conversation. And I pray that you would continue to work in our lives, allow us to be obedient to whatever path you have for us, Father, whatever work that you have for us in whatever way you want us to bring glory to you. Let us be obedient to that path. Be with us, keep us safe during this holiday season. All of those who are listening, I pray that these words bless them in some manner. Love you. It's in your heavenly name we pray. Amen.